I'd like to call to order the Amberley Village Council meeting of October 8, 2018. Please call the roll.
Rich Bardock.
Here.
Peg Conway.
Here.
Ed Hattenbach.
Here.
Alita Kamine.
Here.
Tom Ewing.
Here.
Ray Warren.
Here.
Natalie Wolf.
Here.
Scott Lerner.
Here.
Kevin Frank. Lieutenant Flynn.
And if everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda this evening is the approval of our minutes from our last meeting. Those were circulated in the package. There was one minor edit that was circulated this afternoon. Are there any other changes to those minutes? If not, we can consider the minutes approved. We'll now move on to the finance report for August 2018.
I'd like to talk to you about the general fund for August 2018. The earnings tax collections for the month totaled a little over $109,000. This is up just slightly from last year's amount of $101,000, so it's about a 7% increase just looking at that particular month. The total collections for the year are $1.7 million. Our estimate to begin 2018 was $2.7 million. We've collected about 62% of the earnings tax as of the end of August. The property tax, the village did receive $90,000. This would be the balance of the second half of the real estate tax. We'd previously gotten an advance on the real estate tax, so this was the balance of that in the amount of $90,000. So our previous amount was $320,000 that was advanced to us, or was provided to us. Local government fund, $4,500 for the month of August. Our total revenue for the month of August, $328,000, and that gives us a year-to-date collection of $3.6 million. Our estimate for the entire year for the entire general fund was $4.7 million, so we've collected about 75% of the revenues that we had estimated. On the expense side for the general fund, expenses the month of August, $221,000. Year-to-date expenses of $2.8 million. We have a budget of $5.1 million, so we've spent almost 55% of the budget as of the end of August, and that leaves us with an unencumbered general fund balance of $6.2 million. That concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the manager?
Sorry, question about the local government fund that I've been learning something about recently. So when I look at the graph that you have here between 2008 and now, 2008, we collected $120,000 from the local government fund, and then it kind of dipped, went up a little bit, and then it declined. So does that mean that the state of Ohio changed the formula between 2008 and 2011, and then basically it's gone down and looks like it's plateauing? Is that fair to say?
2008 to 2011. That could be related to collections, because typically the local government fund is tied to some formulas, and that was a turbulent time from a financial standpoint. But I'm not certain what happened at that point in the village. Certainly from 2011 on, it's been a decline because the state has changed that formula significantly.
That wasn't the period, wasn't it in 28 or 27 when they substantially reduced the local government fund to all communities?
It would have been, it was
It
around,
was the same time as they repealed the estate tax.
it was 2011, yes. But it's when it went into effect, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the manager? Thank you. We'll now move on to citizens to speak, and first, welcome Melissa Ridley, who is the new interim principal at Pleasant Ridge Montessori, which is our local elementary school.
Yes.
Thank you, and welcome to our community and everything.
Thank you. Thanks for having me tonight. I just wanted to come so that you could see me and meet me in person. I have been a Montessori educator for 24 years, so it was really important to me to serve in a Montessori school as a leader. And it's kind of interesting because originally I taught in Dayton Public Schools in a neighborhood Montessori model there for 7 years. So I'm kind of coming back to my roots as far as neighborhood Montessori is concerned. It's a delightful place, and I'm honored to be there and leading that building, and hopefully truly leading it when the interim label comes off my name, maybe. So that should be up and coming soon. But I'm looking forward to taking Pleasant Ridge Montessori into the next 5 to 10 years. Would be exciting. Our enrollment's at 697 kids at the present time. Our classrooms are full, but comfortable at this point. But we keep enrolling daily, so it's kind of interesting how that all works over there. My vision for this building is just to kind of close the achievement gap, because we see a huge gap with our subgroups. And so that's one of my visions and goals for Pleasant Ridge Montessori, and also just to continue to educate the whole child through the Montessori method. Any questions for me?
The 697 students that you referred,
Yes.
how does that compare to last year?
I think last year I believe they were over 700 last year. But we're projected, I think within the next year to 2 years, we're projected to be at 800. So they're
The
looking.
building was built for 550.
Yes. So, yeah, we have a plight, ahead of us, but we're doing it right now. We're figuring it out as we go. And the board and the deputy superintendents are very well aware and have started a working group. I think Peg may be sitting on it with our LSDMCs to figure out what we're going to do for the future with our building. So,
Hi, welcome.
hi, thank you.
So we're very lucky to have you, and Angela's done a great job of coming and reporting to us regularly, and Peg reports to us regularly from SDMC. I just, it's as a new principal, we'll just share, we are very happy that Pleasant Ridge Montessori is our neighborhood elementary school, but certainly here, being not in the city of Cincinnati and kind of a small part of the district, we just want to make sure that we are doing everything to have a good relationship and not get forgotten. I know we don't have a lot of kids in that 697. We're not a huge percentage, but we hear sometimes from even real estate agents and people who say like, well, you don't even have an elementary school. Like people, so anything that we can do to help have a, raise that profile of PRM for our neighborhood, so we can continue to attract and retain families and and have people feel good about PRM. We're here. We want to work on it. So
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you.
coming. Good luck.
Thank you.
And please come back.
I will, for sure. Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks again.
Okay, next, Louis Katz.
Thank you. Good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, Manager Larmer, Clerk Browder. It's good to be back, Lieutenant Bloom. Fellow residents here at the council meeting, as well as those watching on cable. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Louis Katz. I'm a very proud member of this community. As many of you probably know, I was on council for a number of years and also served as a magistrate in this village. As I drive through our village now, as well as all of Hamilton County, and I suspect all of the United States, I can't help but notice all of the political signs popping up. Most of us are very distressed at the current political situation. The divisiveness is overwhelming and frankly frightening. The lines being drawn now between blue and red, gender, race, just to name a few, is appalling. What seems to be missing from all of this is a desire by all of us to work together to choose the most qualified and competent representatives that we can, that will truly represent all of our interests. As a lawyer for 47 years, well, I guess the principal left, but 24 years didn't sound like too much. I know how critical it is that we have the best judiciary possible. We need the most qualified judges to protect our rights, to protect us from crime, to give us a fair hearing, and above all, to be impartial. As a lawyer with special familiarity with the judicial candidates, I'm frequently asked, as Representative Hadenbach and I discussed before the council meeting, by friends, relatives, and clients who are the most competent and qualified judicial candidates deserving our votes. Like the candidates for Amberley Council, the only consideration must be who is the best person for the job. That is why I asked for time to speak here tonight on behalf of Dale Stolf, who is running for judge for the 1st District Court of Appeals of Hamilton County, Ohio. Based upon my personal and professional knowledge of Dale, I can tell you that he is indeed the most qualified and most competent and best candidate for the job of Judge of Court of Appeals. Besides being a good husband, father, and grandfather, Dale has a genuine desire to serve the community, and specifically Hamilton County. As part of his desire to make our country a better place, he volunteered for the Army and was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant in the Army in the 101st Airborne Division. After serving the country in that role, and while still in the Army, he enrolled in law school where he graduated from the University of Cincinnati with the highest honors. He joined JAG, the Judge Advocate General Corps, and served in Germany and then actually in the Pentagon, before coming back to Cincinnati and joining a respected defense law firm, Lindhorst & Dryden, where he continued to learn litigation from the best lawyers in town. He learned from them the overriding duty to do the right thing the right way. Not only is Dale's legal expertise broad and varied, but he's most qualified in the judge for this seat on the Hamilton County Court of Appeals. He has tried many criminal and civil cases and appeal cases representing the government, defendants, and plaintiffs. Knowing Dale, I can tell you that he has a first-rate judicial temperament. Any lawyer knows that's critical. Dale has been selected repeatedly as a top 50 lawyer in Cincinnati, and in fact, he's been rated in the top 100 in the state of Ohio. Dale is now a partner of the law firm of Wood & Lamping, which, as many of you know, is the law firm that represents our village. Dale's been active in community services as well. When I reinvigorated with Judge Winkler from Probate Court, the Wills for First Responder program, Dale was among the first to volunteer his time to help create wills for our first responders who risk their lives daily for us. Thank you, Lieutenant Bloom. I hope you will consider Dale when casting your vote for judge for the 1st District Court of Appeals. If you looked at Dale's experience and had the opportunity to get to know him as I have, and as our solicitor Kevin Frank has, I'm certain you would vote for him as well on November 6th. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. Thank you for your consideration of Dale Stolf for Judge of Hamilton County Court of Appeals. And thank you all for helping make Amberley the best place to live. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Peck? Thank you very much. Next, Scott Wolf.
Should have worked on my speech a little more after listening to that. Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Scott Wolf. I reside at 7024 Beach Hollow Drive. I have been a member of the Board of Zoning and Appeals for several years. Over those years, we have noted many times that there need to be some updates to our current zoning code that would be most appropriate and considered necessary. The process to update the zoning code has been a process that's been in effect we've been working on for close to a year with the Law Committee in conjunction with the BZA. Several months ago, a large structure was requested to be built behind the house on Elbrook, which once again brought the current accessory structure code to the attention of the BZA. After that meeting, once again, we decided that that section of the building code should be re-examined, which the Law Committee is currently doing. Over the past several years, the increase in the number of accessory buildings that have been approved with various conditions seems to have increased. In order to bring the current Amberley zoning code in line with the changes that we have previously discussed, and to ensure the previously approved accessory building that have been approved with conditions are now in conformity, I am urging council to pass the emergency ordinance approving a temporary moratorium on certain accessory structures. This will ensure that the property values of the residents of Amberley Village are properly protected until the law committee concludes its work and makes its recommendations. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to committee reports, and first, the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. First item I have on my agenda is to introduce resolution number 2018-22, which is accepting the rates of the Budget Commission, which is something, a follow-up to the preliminary budget, which we had submitted before council back in June, where we asked the county auditor's office to prove that we have a need for tax revenues. Accordingly, the Budget Commission has established that we will be receiving approximately $1,170,000 in general fund revenues, real estate tax revenues, and not quite $1.3 million in the public safety levy. Accordingly, I move that we adopt resolution number 2018-22, accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2018-22, which accepts the amounts of rates as determined by the Budget Commission. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, if not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2018-22. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Be it noted that the resolution passes unanimously.
The other item I want to introduce is an appropriation in the amount of $57,000 to the Stormwater Utility Fund. The purpose of this is the fact that we have a need to perform some work, and there was inadequate funds available to perform this work. So accordingly, at the Finance Committee meeting, we discussed the merits of proceeding with the 2018 program to transfer $57,000 from the general fund, and to accomplish this by transferring to the Stormwater Utility Fund. In discussions at this time, the rate reductions which we have had in the Stormwater Utility Fund, Council was made aware that such a situation like this could occur. There is sufficient money in the general fund at this time to supplement the Stormwater Fund. Accordingly, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2018-10, the ordinance appropriating and transferring funds to the Stormwater Utility Fund, $57,000.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2018-10, which would transfer and appropriate $57,000 to the stormwater utility. Are there any questions or comments?
As a member of the Finance Committee, I just wanted to add that staff was willing and suggesting that they remove items from the work list for the Stormwater Fund, stormwater work. And we had a robust discussion about the need to do that or not, and we reiterated our earlier discussions, knowing the reduction in the stormwater utility rate, that there may be situations where we would want to augment from the general fund. And so we felt that the nature of the work was a priority and that the general fund could tolerate this transfer. So this is a little further background on the discussion.
And it was also pointed out in the Finance Committee, it's one of the real benefits of having restored our general fund up to a more robust level, that we can make decisions like this and not put at risk anything with respect to the village as far as its financial stability.
Just general question. So was this anticipated when stormwater projects were drawn up? Because if I recall, I thought basically all the stormwater projects were accounted for, the funding was accounted for. So is this an unusual expense that occurred?
It's sort of the culmination of a couple of things. You recall that when we did the estimate for the Stormwater Advisory Board as well as the Street Committee in regards to what our end-of-the-year fund balance would be, we were still in the running for Kincaid, the Kincaid grant. And so that was an unknown. But when we got into 2018, heard that we did not receive the Kincaid grant, we went ahead and added 2 projects that had an effect on the stormwater fund. One being additional road work, actually turned out to be curb work on Elbrook, and that affects the stormwater fund. And then the second project we went ahead and added because it was brought to our attention was the Beach Hollow issue, and that was with the surface water draining and then freezing on Beach Hollow. So those were sort of added sort of at that last minute, and because of that, that's what created the situation where we're a little tight.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2018-10, appropriating $57,000 for the stormwater utility fund. Please call the roll.
Rich Barda. Yes. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Alita Kaymine. Yes. Tom Meething.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
The second item on this ordinance is that in accordance with the village charter, Article 9, Section 1, and Article 10, Section 4, this ordinance may be passed on a single reading and shall become effective forthwith upon its adoption.
I mean, that is
But-
part of the ordinance, so,
Yeah.
we do not need a separate
Okay,
vote on that.
that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the police and fire committee.
Okay, thank you. The committee met on September 17th to discuss the need for a repair to the fire truck. Approximately 2 months ago, a leak was noticed in the water tank of the lead fire truck, and it was determined to be the booster tank, which is positioned in the center of the truck and out of sight. A similar leak occurred several years ago, and an epoxy repair was made. At this time, it's necessary to remove the tank and replace it. If the leak continues and is not repaired, it will cause extensive damage and rust to the frame of the truck, and it is leaking about 125 gallons in a 72-hour period. The company that would cover the warranty work for the tank is out of business. The truck is an older vehicle. 2 significantly different estimates were obtained from companies capable of replacing the tank that ranged in price from $15,000 down to a little over $9,600. So the latter, the lower one, was from Specialty Truck Repair. Both estimates were scrutinized carefully and assessed, can they actually do the work for this price? And in fact, they could. And this was determined to be the best quote and for the time frame. Specialty Truck Repair has performed work on the truck in the past, is local and familiar with this type of tank replacement. The replacement has been ordered and will be delivered in a few weeks. Once received, the work will take 1 or 2 weeks to be completed. Due to the emergency nature, the necessity of having our lead fire truck in good repair, the work was authorized by the village manager and approved by the police fire committee at our meeting. Once the vehicle is taken out of service, surrounding communities will be made aware to ensure mutual aid and that the village can use our backup truck. So therefore, I move that we adopt resolution number 2018-23, authorizing emergency repairs to the fire apparatus Quint at a cost of $9,648.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2018-23, authorizing the emergency repair of the fire truck. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2018-23. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be it noted that the resolution passes unanimously.
In conclusion, I just want to compliment our police for the work yesterday. I participated in the Great Human Race 5K that was at the JCC and in the northern kind of neighborhoods. It was very hot, and they were very capable with the cones and the traffic and very friendly to those of us sweating along the route. So that concludes my report.
Okay, we'll now move on to the law committee.
In order to maintain the appearance of property in the village and sustain high property values, it's necessary to have regulations in place to enable the village and its residents to establish uniform standards relating to the construction and use of structures in residential neighborhoods, including but not limited to accessory structures such as sheds and garages. Whereas council recently became aware that existing zoning regulations do not prohibit construction of certain accessory structures that are so large and are constructed of such unattractive, undesirable materials that such structures threaten the health, safety, and welfare of the community, other residents, property values, the ability of residents to use and enjoy their own properties, and the overall beauty and attractive appearance of the village. Whereas an immediate halt to the construction of certain accessory structures is necessary in order to provide ample time for the village to investigate and study the existing zoning code and develop fair and equitable rules to balance the property owner's ability to place accessory structures on their property with the adverse impact of such structures on neighbors and the community as a whole. Whereas the Law Committee discussed the issue and recommends that the council adopt a 6-month moratorium from October 8, 2018 on accessory structures over 200 square feet in size pending proper consideration and review of regulations affecting accessory structures in the village. The moratorium includes accessory structures that are covered or have a roof such that they are not open to the sky, such as sheds or garages, but does not include uncovered structures such as swimming pools, patios, driveways, swing sets, and similar structures. The purpose of the moratorium is to allow the village to study and investigate accessory structures in the village and to develop fair and equitable regulations governing accessory structures that balance the ability of property owners to use their property with the adverse impacts of such structures on neighbors and the surrounding community, property values, and quality of life in general. While the moratorium is in place, the village will not grant zoning or permit approvals for accessory structures exceeding the aforementioned dimension. The moratorium does not apply to structures for which zoning approval and/or building permit has been issued before the effective date of the ordinance. So I move to adopt ordinance number 2018-11.
Second. You first will probably want to make a motion to waive the 3 readings of the ordinance.
I move to declare an emergency necessary.
No. The first thing you want to do, if you want to have the ordinance up for approval, we have to first waive the 3 readings. So first make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
I make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings with respect to the proposed ordinance 2018-11, which would approve a temporary moratorium on certain accessory structures. Are there any questions or comments with respect to the motion to waive the 3 readings?
My question is potential legal exposure. Should we try to pass this motion on first reading? Is there any, from our legal counsel, is there any concerns that you might have for the precedent which could cause us to be concerned? Should we waive the 3 readings?
I'm certainly not aware of any case law out there that says a village would be at risk for passing something on the first reading as opposed to the third. If you want to waive the readings, that's your prerogative.
Are there any other questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings with respect to ordinance 2018-11. Please call the roll.
Rich Barda.
Yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
No.
Alita Kamine. Yes. Tom Meething.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, now you can make your motion to actually approve the ordinance.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2018-11, which would put in place a temporary moratorium with respect to accessory structures. Are there any questions or comments?
I have a question. Can you share any history behind this? Was this something that came up recently? Has this been recurring?
This has been a recurring theme, but we've had more and more issues come up with sizes that residents find disturbing, and we don't have any guidance as a board to deal with. So we need guidance to address these issues. Not only this code section, there's several code sections that the board, First Scott Wolf, would attest to this. We need more guidance. 'Cause these were drafted, I don't know what year, but a lot of these are so far out of date to what we have in a lot of society that need to be revised. We have to deal with the size of the big issue.
Well, I actually was the committee member who brought this motion for the emergency ordinance on the moratorium to the committee. And at the time, I said I wasn't sure how I felt about it or whether I would vote for it. But since then, I took a drive around the village. And I drove down Elbrook this morning, which is where a year ago I noticed what I called Scott Larmer to tell him there is a house being erected behind a house on a half-acre lot on Elbrook. And that house is now complete, but it's called a garage because apparently it meets what we call a garage. It has a garage door, and it meets the square footage. However, it also has a man door and extra space and windows and a second story and a roof, and it is essentially a house. So I think that this came up a year ago. It's been coming up, and I don't know if it's because the code that we lack an appropriate definition for what is an accessory structure versus what is a house. But certainly we can't have people building accessory homes in their backyards and calling them something else. But I also want to speak to the rest of the code and the other problems that are in the code, because in my drive I also was noticing peeling paint and overrun weeds and shrubbery and bushes and non-conforming fences. And I mean, this is all in addition to these so-called swing sets that I call gliders, but I mean, this is not even related to people's taste in patio furniture on the front. There is just a general disdain for the zoning code that is occurring on, I don't know what directionally that is, but the Elbrook end of the village. And I read in the newsletter that we added extra curbing to Elbrook. So as a village, we are concerned with maintaining our streets because this is how we want to be viewed by the rest of the county and the community as an attractive, well-maintained place to live. And so I don't think it's asking too much to expect our residents to follow the zoning code, which brings me to who is the body that has the authority to recommend these changes. And this, in my opinion, I'm not saying that we shouldn't, that we should not pass this. I'm going to vote for it. I'm all in favor of it. But I feel like that the BZA is also a body in our community that does have the authority to review and recommend the changes to the code as well. Thank you.
I mean, just I mean, the BZA, Councilman Bardak's comments that the BZA did say to the council, 9 months to a year ago, that we do need revisions to it. As far as the process, the BZA can review and recommend to council the changes.
Yes.
But council needs to approve the ultimate changes. And, I like Councilman Barrios recognize that, what's happened in this case is we recognized all along, we recognized that this was a priority for 2018, but what's happening now is that the BZA is seeing cases, recurring cases, and they just want our help to get them through this intervening period before we have the ultimate rules to put in place that will help the BZA make their decisions.
I have two questions. The first is property maintenance technically part of the zoning code, or is separate? So it's a separate area of legislation than zoning?
It is separate from zoning, yes.
Okay. And my second question is, What exactly are the steps and the time frame if we adopt this moratorium and we focus on creating some guidance, at least on accessory structures? What is the time period? What are the steps and how long do they take?
What would likely occur is that staff will begin working on what regulations can be put in place for accessory structures. We're going to need some inputs. We're going to need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Law Committee, but ultimately that it will go back to the Planning Commission for their recommendation, and then that'll be a recommendation that comes to Village Council. So the time frame for staff to do the research and to get the language together is probably a couple of months. Planning Commission is a 1-month step. Council is a 3-month step if none of the readings are waived.
Okay, I was hoping we could do a 4-month. 6 months moratorium feels like a long time, but I understand. I forgot about all the processes, the steps. I forgot about the 3 readings. That's actually what I forgot about. And can I ask a third question? Sorry. So how would you, I guess this is more for Kevin, how would you rate the risk of being sued for this kind of action?
I mean, the risk of being sued is pretty hard to guess. Sometimes we get sued over silly things I wouldn't expect, and sometimes there are more controversial things I would expect that never happens. You're kind of looking at the personality of an individual who might be affected by this, and I don't know who all is affected by this, except we've had 1 or 2 people, applicants in with the BZA lately, so I give it a fairly low percentage, 20%, 25% or something like that. I'm very certain that the village would win if the village was sued, so I think you're not looking at much liability except for your attorney's costs to defend the case.
Legal-related question. So let's say it takes us 6 months and we pass a new ordinance. If someone has applied for an accessory building during this period, I mean, they can ask to be grandfathered, correct? Or no? Correct, that's what we're talking about. Is there a liability or potential liability for someone who, let's say, comes to BZA in the next month, they know there's a moratorium, and there would be a special, I mean, that would be a special request or a variance or something to that effect, correct?
And the reality is, once you put that moratorium in place, I mean, the application will not be going to the BCA. There is a moratorium.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, if anyone has received zoning or building approval before the moratorium's approved, they're grandfathered or they're already approved. At this point, if the moratorium's approved, any applications coming afterwards during the 6-month period, or, if we finish sooner, we'll finish sooner, I presume cancel the moratorium, but any applications for zoning approval filed after the moratorium will be rejected because they're just not going to be approved. They're not allowed during the moratorium.
Any other questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2018-11. Please call the roll.
Rich Barda.
Yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Alita Kamine. Yes. Tom Muething.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
I move to declare an emergency necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety.
Second. Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2018-11 as an emergency measure. Are there any questions or comments with respect to that? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2018-11 as an emergency measure which will allow the ordinance to go into immediate effect. Please call the roll.
Rich Barda.
Yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Alita Kamine. Yes. Tom Muething.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
That concludes my report.
One question.
Yes.
That, I just wanted to make one comment that is going to sound, I'm on my soapbox again about this, related to the ongoing conversation that we're having about the changes to the code, not specific to this issue. But I do just want to make sure that, a couple things. One, that we are thoughtful about how we communicate this with residents in general. This is my communications speech, again, about just communicating with residents. I know that there are a lot of built-in requirements as part of the process. We'll have, probably multiple readings, we'll have public hearings, all those pieces. But I think those are somewhat technical, and this really will potentially impact a lot of people. And I think that it's easy to, the comments, I've been to the last 2 law committee meetings where we discussed this, and it can be very easy to sort of overestimate how familiar people are with this process in general, what the BZA is, what the Planning Commission is, what this process is, what it means to come before a variance. People were asking like, so I'll never be able to do anything ever again. It's like, well, there's a process and there's a BZA. So just making sure that we're communicating with our residents clearly. And also, I think, the other piece that I caution us, and Vice Mayor, I take your point, but I also think if you look through that list and you look at where the complaints that have been used to generate that list come from, they really are all over the village. And I really just caution us about sort of making this feel like it's singling out a particular part of the village. I think we have an opportunity to communicate this in a way that might be very educational, and it's not intended to be like extremely punitive, right? We're trying to set a standard that we understand that there are exceptions to. We want people to meet certain, we have high aspirations for our community and certain goals that we want to see, but we're not trying to pull out all sticks and just start beating people with them. I think we're trying to give our administration tools to really help with really bad actors, tools, and the BZA, tools for figuring out how to have a little bit more guidance, and we're trying to make some minimum standards. So this is really just a broad comment about maybe we have a lot of time to think about this as a council, as an administration, but just ways that we can engage residents around this in a way that isn't scary and punitive and feeling like and also feeling very technical and behind the scenes, and then all of a sudden they're out of compliance or they're going in a new process. So just want us to be cautious of being, I fully support where we're going. I've been leading the charge on some of those line items, but I just want to make sure we're not really freaking people out and unnecessarily.
Yeah, but I do think it's very important that we as a council recognize and speak in a way that we recognize that it's 2 different buckets we're talking about. There's zoning issues that we're working with the BZA on, and as far as enforcement in areas of the code. That was an area where both the administration and our maintenance people in the police department said to us as council, we need help because, enforcement of the code, both enforcement and possibly changes to the code, they need help. And so it's 2 different areas that we're talking about, and we just need to recognize.
And both of them may require, I think, yes, on the one hand is sort of BZA question, the nature of some of the conversation that came up in the committee the other day and in the previous committee, just some of the questions from the general public, they were about things like, you can get a variance, like if you live on an irregular lot, the planning commission or the BZA will take that into account. But I do think you're right. The majority of probably there's a lot of this conversation that you're right. We want to be careful we're not conflating the property maintenance code.
Alita brings up a question for me then. Are we going to generally communicate this moratorium, or are we going to just passively tell people when they apply?
I would lean to letting everybody know. It goes into effect
Today. It's in effect right now.
So it'll be put out tomorrow, yes. Obviously, as we get applications in, we would let those folks know as well.
Just want to finish with, it's my understanding that this was the unanimous desire of the BZA, correct?
Absolutely. That's why you want to.
Okay, we'll now move on to the manager's report.
Thank you. had a couple of items I wanted to point out from the manager's report. The first item, you notice that we have completed improvements in the park just south of the municipal building here. The first project was recommended by the Public Buildings and Parks Committee, and that was the renovation of the ball fields. So this would be the upper ball field, so those improvements have been taken care of. And then while that was underway, the maintenance staff was able to rework some of the water lines in that area, and most recently installed a water fountain near the field. So that has been completed. It is a handicap accessible water fountain, drinking fountain, and so we've gotten some nice compliments from folks that are using our park. And then we were also able to seal the parking lot that serves the park as well. So it's looking pretty nice in that area. The second item I wanted to point out is I did have the opportunity to attend the International City Manager Association Conference that was held third week of September. This was of particular significance. It was my 19th conference to attend, but I was recognized during that conference for my 35 years of service. I just wanted to thank council for allowing me to attend the conference. We are now embarking on leaf collection in the village. We have wrapped up the brush collection. Last week was our final week for brush collection, so starting next Monday, October 15th, we will begin leaf collection throughout the village. And as that program ramps up and as it gets busier, we will then put out the white and black signs, giving residents a heads up about what time they can expect us to be in their, what day they can expect us to be in their neighborhood. But we'll be doing that through December 28th. Residents are encouraged to merely just rake their leaves to the street, and we will vacuum them from there. And then my last item I wanted to bring attention to was the print newsletter. We do a print newsletter twice a year, and this one should have been received this past week by residents. You have not received it yet. So you're going to receive it this week? Okay. Right, okay, yes. You'll receive it this week, yes. Obviously, it's a very useful piece of information, a lot of useful information here, but the one item I wanted to point out is there is an article entitled, When Should I Call the Police? And so I think it's a very helpful article, and I think it goes hand in hand that we were just named by Niche, which is a research company that tries to connect people to their neighborhoods and schools and workplaces. And Niche just ranked us at Amberley Village as the #1 safest community in Cincinnati. So part of this article goes to what is suspicious activity. So it encourages residents to call the police department regardless of what they see. If it's something odd, they should make that call to the police department. So it's that kind of activity that helps us have rankings like being #1 safest community in the Cincinnati area. So I just wanted to point that out as well. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the manager? If not, we'll move on to the chief's report. Lieutenant Bloom.
Yes, I just have one thing to report. Amberley Village Police Department participates in Hamilton County OVI Task Force where they put out saturation patrols for intoxicated drivers, impaired drivers. And last year, in 2017, one of our officers, Sergeant Brandon Gehring, actually won the award for having the most arrests for impaired drivers during 2017. And just recently, last Friday, for 2018, he received the award for the second year in a row. So Sergeant Gehring is very proactive on the streets and is obviously recognized in Hamilton County as a very good traffic enforcement officer and getting impaired drivers off the street. So I just wanted to have him be recognized for that. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions for the lieutenant? If not, move on to the mayor's report. I have just 3 items I wanted to mention. First, before you this evening is Resolution 2018-24.
Toward the end. Yeah.
And this was a
Page 44.
resolution that the Environmental Stewardship Committee has been working on. As part of the Environmental Stewardship Committee's work, they've been working with We Thrive, which is Hamilton County Public Health, on the environmental pathway. And one of the initiatives that they wanted to work on this year was with respect to idle-free zones, et cetera. What the resolution does, what the Environmental Stewardship Committee wants to do, is just work more on education. I mean, these idle-free zones or idle-free, it's not, mandatory or anything, but if, what the Environmental Stewardship Committee basically said is, these are little things that we can do to help improve our environment, and to the extent, when I sit in the Environmental Stewardship Committee and this came up, the one that always bothers me is when I go over to pick up somebody at the airport and sit in the cell phone lot, and you have people sitting there idling their car as they wait to pick up somebody rather than turning their car off. And so this is something that Hamilton County Public Health has been trying to stress. If you go down to their offices on Taft, they have signs all over saying, it is an idle-free zone. A lot of schools have started to do it. What we are going to do in Amberley is put up a few signs down here at the ball fields, one up at Amberley Green. We're going to try to draft some articles that we'll put out in both the e-news and maybe the print newsletter later. We're going to send some letters to our synagogues and things like that. But just trying to stress to people that, just think, if you're going to be idling for more than 5 minutes, both for the environment and economically, it makes sense to turn your engine off. In the winter, your car will stay fairly warm. If you need to turn it back on for a while, if you're going to be there for a long time, then fine. So the Environmental Stewardship Committee recommended at its last meeting that council pass this resolution stressing the importance of idle-free zones. So I am here to make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-24 supporting idle-free zones.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2018-24 supporting idle-free zones. Are there any questions or comments?
I just want to point out that because the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee is going to be taking on the chronic disease pathway, that this is an example of what We Thrive would call a policy change. And a policy change, it will hopefully lead to systems change and environmental change. So by passing the resolution first and then engaging in the education of the community, hopefully what we will accomplish is a system where people turn off their cars and they're waiting. So, nice.
Tom, will the committee or police consider putting some signage in by the Lozannaville School? Because that's also a place where there's pickup, drop-off of students, and there could be considerable idling as well.
When we send the letter we'll send a letter to Lozannaville School, but we can only put up a sign on properties, on public property that we own. So we can let them know that we can give them a sign if they're interested. And we can make, because we're getting the signs from Hamilton County, and they're willing to give us more signs. So to the extent a school or a synagogue or whatever wants a sign, we can get them a sign at no cost. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2018-24. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be it noted that the resolution passes unanimously. Second, on September 27th, the Marison JCC celebrated their 10th anniversary here in Amberley. This was done at their annual meeting. I attended and read a proclamation, and I do want to read the proclamation. I do think, this was something, when the Marison JCC ultimately was approved for Amberley, it has been a great, great thing both for the Jewish community and the greater community as far as the JCC, but it's been great for Amberley. And I think, we're so thankful that the decision that was ultimately made, that they are in Amberley, and I think it's been tremendous benefit to all our residents And so I just want to read the proclamation that I read at the 10th anniversary. Be it proclaimed, whereas the Marison JCC is celebrating its 10th anniversary in 2018, and whereas over these past 10 years, the Marison JCC has provided outstanding services to its members, the greater Cincinnati Jewish community, and Amberley Village residents, and whereas the Marison JCC and its staff have become an integral part of the Amberley Village community, and whereas the Marison JCC and its staff are always looking for creative ways to partner with Amberley Village to improve services for everyone. Now therefore, I, Thomas C. Newthing, Mayor of Amberley Village, do hereby proclaim September 27, 2018 as the Marison JCC Community Center Day in Amberley Village. So it was a very nice event, and I was glad I was there. The last thing I wanted to report on was related to the Environmental Stewardship Committee. At the meeting in September, Amberley Village did receive our Tree City USA recognition as far as our new flag, our new stickers. It's normally giving out in May of every year, but Amberley was not able to attend. So Wendy Van Buren from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources came to the Environmental Stewardship Committee and recognized Amberley. It is our 15th consecutive year to be recognized as a Tree City USA. Secondly, with respect to the Environmental Stewardship Committee, the next meeting will be November 22nd, and that will be the final meeting of the year. And normally, the Environmental Stewardship Committee has a fall program. This year, we wanted to have a fall program in French Park, but we could not get a date that met with the. What we wanted to do was have a program about pollinator plants and pollinator trees, but we couldn't get a naturalist on the agenda. So we've already set a date for the program next May, and because we've given the Cincinnati Park so much advance notice, we will be able to get a naturalist, and they thought that would be a better date to talk about pollinator plants and pollinator trees. Anyway, there was some concern that the pollinator plants wouldn't look very good this time of year. And then lastly, the final Clean the Green for the Environmental Stewardship Committee, which is an activity where volunteers go down and do some minor maintenance on trees at Amberley Green, will be October 25th down at the Green, meet in the parking lot at 5:30, and that will be the final program. That concludes my mayor's report. Any questions?
You said November 27th to next November or October?
I believe it's November.
No, it's Monday, so it'll be October.
We do not have a meeting, I know, in October. What is the?
It's a Thursday. Thursday,
We
November
normally meet
22nd.
on Monday. Correct. What is?
Thursday, November 22nd.
What's the? Yeah. I will send an email. I apologize. I will send an email out to our council members, letting you know.
We have it on the calendar for October 22nd.
All right, October 22nd, next meeting. Okay, any other questions?
Just one comment. I think early voting starts tomorrow. So all residents of Amberley, do your civic duty and vote.
Okay. Any new business? If not, we can consider the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.